Ed and I just love pushing clay together, and we have been doing so since the mid-'70s. The first time I saw Ed was when I went to Barney Bright's to take a look at the river horse, because I was putting it in the history of Louisville window that I was doing for the Riverfront Corporation on the Belvedere. And so my first time, Ed with plaster and clay and a big old fro, right? The next time was when Ed and G.C. Cox and Fred Bond and Duff were all working in the basement of my studio on Main Street. And so I'd go down and visit them. They'd come up and visit me. But he never brought that half pint. You didn't trust me?
Too many religious icons were up, Ed said.
Exactly. And what I did was I wrote something down on these cards, because normally a short talk for me would be 25, 30 minutes. At least that's what my parishioners say. But in another moment, Ed is the brother of my heart and has been since, we've done so many commissions together. But when Spirit of Freedom flashed up on here, Ed, and I remember that bright sunny day, and you unveiled that piece. The sun hit it, and it shone like gold. And the people standing around, hundreds of people around, all they could do was, ooh, gasp, wow. It was a spiritual event, just unveiling it. Get a little bit, Ed, my brother of my heart. We have been connected since '75 with G.C. Cox, Duffy, Bond, and company. Early years of brash and heady creativity, junkology, and dreams. We gave image together of hard bronze born in soft clay, pushed in brotherhood, the brotherhood of art, and justice challenged and made real with names called Booker T, Amistad, Joe Louis, Limestone Menorah, MLK Jr., Faithful York, Frontier Families, that is here right now. Yes, the Spirit of Freedom with glory ringing in our ears, because it never stopped playing while we were working that clay. We stand today older and gray, and I sing your praises as clay shaper, vision maker, soft and gentle friend. You, artist and maker, who shows us the image of God in yourself, your husband and father, brother and friend. I remember the days of dark sculpted into an inner light. I rejoiced in your joy of finding your family lost, your mother treated like the feisty lady she was, a queen by her loving son. I toast beautiful Bernadette, your wife, your rock, your companion on your journey. I salute you, humble pusher of clay. And I love you, Ed. Salute.
Such a pleasure to be here to say some words about my buddy, my friend, Brother Ed Hamilton. You know, I take some credit for something. Back in the 70s, I had an organization, a community-based organization that worked with local artists, you know. We did a lot of administrative stuff for them. My organization got a grant, received a grant from a major corporation here in the city. And I used part of that grant to take some local artists to New York. Louisville artists going to New York to try to immerse them in the culture of the art world in Black New York. You know, and Ed and Bernadette were amongst that group of people that we took. I was so impressed with Ed as we got on the plane. As Ed was kind of walking up and down the aisle and stuff, you know, and looking everywhere. And I later found out that that was Ed's first airplane flight. So I take the credit for giving Ed an experience in the art of flying. At the studio in the 70s, I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful place up on Shelby Street where the studio still remains. But I used to go up there almost 2 or 3 times a week. And I normally go around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, you know, where people are finished with their work. There was G.C. Cox up in the studio, Duffy and another one. And we'd gather, we kind of gather in Ed's space on the downstairs there and just sit in the midst of all of his artwork. Of course, we always had to have a little taste. So I would stop often and get a taste to bring him up. You know, half pints and pints were popular during that period of time, you know. Or Ed would jump out and go to the store down the street and get a piece, get some. Yeah, old Forster was a well. And on one occasion, I went up there and I saw Ed working on a piece, a very unique piece that I hadn't seen him dealing with before, you know. And this piece was so intriguing to me that I went up to Ed and said, Ed, I said, I like that piece you're working on. I said, I want to buy it from you. And he said, okay. I said, how much? He told me and I paid him for it. With the condition, of course, that he be allowed to take it to exhibit it in other shows or exhibits that might be coming up. And on one occasion, Ed came to me and said, Ken, a corporation wants to buy that piece from me. And I want to know if you'll sell it back to me. I said, Ed, how much did they offer you? And he told me, I said, no way, baby, no way. No way. I said, they don't know the value of this work. And so I am so glad that I still have that piece in my house, and it's called Aqua Mother. Ed and I call it Aqua Mama. And we love that piece. We love that piece. Ed has always been the kind of guy that is just wonderful to be around. He's been a friend of, and the family, the whole Hamilton family has been a friend of Carol and mine for a number of years. And we're so pleased to be able to call them family. And you can't talk about Ed Hamilton unless you talk about Bernadette. They go together, y'all. They're one and the same. Thank you so much.
Uncle Ed, he mentioned how important teachers are. And not only teachers, but people who are able to believe in you. You know, growing up in this day and age, you know, as a young Black woman, I didn't really feel special growing up. And this man right here literally made me feel special from the day he met me, the day I met him. I'll never forget with my first art class in my junior year of high school at Central High School, Mr. Robertson, he gave us a course on Ed Hamilton's work. I had never known that the sculptures that I grew up around when I was coming up as a kid downtown were made by a Black man that still lived here to this day. I was so blown away. And he told us how much Ed Hamilton would get paid for a sculpture, and I was just like, what? This man is rich. I was just like, you can make that much money off of being an artist? Like, I just never knew that. It was an amazing exposure just learning about Uncle Ed from the course that I had that one day in high school. So when 2 weeks or so later, Mr. Robertson says that there's an amazing art show going on at the High Art Institute of Bob Thompson's work, he mentioned that Ed Hamilton was most likely going to be there. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool. And he pointed me out in class. He was just like, Lanaya, you need to go to that show, and you need to meet Ed Hamilton. And I was just like, this famous man, what is he gonna want to do with me? Like, and that's the thing, once again, that belief, right? Mr. Robertson, he believed in me and my abilities, and he knew as a white male teacher, he could only give me so much, and that I was gonna need somebody that looked like me to really propel me forward in my career. So I went to this show, and I saw Ed Hamilton looking sharp, which made it even more intimidating because I'm just like, and he's cool, like, dang. Famous, rich, cool, dang. Anyway, so I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't know how to go up to him. I was 15, 16 years old. Finally, I get the courage. I went up to him. There was a little line to talk to him. And finally, it was my turn, and I was just like, hi, Mr. Hamilton. My name is Lanaya Roberts. I go to Central High School. I have some of my art on my phone. Would you like to see it? And he was just like, yeah, sure. I was just like, okay. So I showed him the folder, and he's scrolling. He was just like, dang, girl, you good. I was just like, thank you so much. And then I asked him, I was just like, now, this might seem weird, but I would love the opportunity to come to your art studio. And he was just like, yeah, you can come. Here's my email. Write it down. So I wrote down his email, and I go to his studio, and he sees my work, and he's just like, hold on. If you want to come back here, there's one thing you got to do for me. I was just like, okay, I definitely want to come back. So what you want me to do? He goes and he gets his book that he wrote, his autobiography. And he said, if you want to come back here, you better read this book. You can't come back here if you don't read it. Man, I zoomed past that book in weeks, and it was history from there. That was a decade ago. I was a junior in high school 10 years ago, and this man has literally changed my life. If it wasn't for having Uncle Ed's freaking confidence and belief in me, it's one thing to have a teacher, someone who sees you, but to have someone that you look up to, see your light and see your potential. And even when you have doubt and you can't see it, and maybe they don't even know that you can't see it, but they just consistently see that light and that potential and how much you have to offer. As a young Black woman, coming from especially a father figure in my life, I didn't grow up around artists. That was not my reality. So to be able to have a family like Aunt Bernadette and Uncle Ed show me the beauty of life as an artist and how it can be if you just never give up, even through the struggles, it's so inspirational. So thank you for always being a light, and thank you for always believing in me. I love you.
I just want to thank Ed from the bottom of my heart. I know you've won numerous awards, and you're going to keep winning and keep overachieving because of your talent and things like that. The thing I'm most impressed by and thankful for is your willingness to overcome your adversity and things that happen behind the scene. I mean, you have a beautiful spirit that you shared your light with us and things, and I'm thankful for it.
Ed's the man. It's amazing when you meet someone of his stature that he really doesn't know how big he is. I mean, he's a giant. And being that giant, as someone said, everything is, he is as cool as you ever want to be cool. So when you say cool, you think Ed Hamilton. And what I like about Ed more than anything is that his door is always open. And during my travels, when I was doing River City Drum Corps, we were all over the city. And I would say, come on, y'all, I'm gonna take y'all someplace. And we would take him, I would take him up to, but I said, there's one thing, can't touch nothing. Whatever you do, you can't touch nothing. You know, so you can imagine, I say here, sometimes, especially my little, kids that I know touch a lot, when you come in, I want you to keep your hands in your pocket. Keep your hands in your pocket, because we can't pay for nothing that that gets broken. And so the greatest memory, and my children, especially Albert, who is the director of the River City Drum Corps now, he talks about his experience of going in when Ed was doing the Civil War piece. And all during that summer, I would take them in. And whenever I would take them in, Ed would always give them water bottles and say, here, spray it. Just spray it. They would just spray the clay. They would just be so happy. They would just be so happy. And that happiness I still see in them whenever his name is mentioned, or ever something about his work. He said, well, I sprayed that. I sprayed it. Yeah, you remember when he took us up there? He said, we were just riding out, Miss Norty said, come on, I'm gonna take y'all someplace. And still today, I do that. I say, come on, I'm gonna take y'all someplace. And when I take them in, it's just like, and Kendra, when you build that place, it's gonna be a gift to the world. And we need to find a collection, because there's plenty of money in Louisville to make that happen, to build that. Because it's not about the money, it's about the potential of what it can do to change people's lives. That's what it's about. It's about changing lives. It's about changing little kids' life, just like we're looking at this new Supreme Court justice that we're getting ready to have. But here's the greatest thing about art. My mother had 5 boys. I did not get the sports gene. Did not get it. Wasn't buying no crayons, wasn't buying no paper. You get this ball. I can take all y'all to one place, give y'all all one ball, and it's done. So I was either ahead by 20 or behind by 20 before I ever got to play. And now, being an artist, I didn't get the opportunity to become an artist until after I retired from the River City Drum Corps, till I was almost 65 years old. They're the smartest children and the brightest children and most energetic children that have ever been in my circle are artists. And so therefore, that's why that center is important, so that we can see the power of art. Because once art is created, it lasts forever. And Ed, you're gonna last forever.